Our group is doing the information processing theory. My name is Gilbert Huerta. In my group, we have Samantha, Mayra, Berenice. What is information processing theory? Information processing theory is a cognitive theory that focuses on how information is processed and stored in our memory. This theory proposes that as individuals mature, they develop greater ability to attend to stimulus, recognize patterns, encode, and retrieve information. Also, more likely to develop own memory strategies. And to the right, we have a model of the information processing theory.
I will be discussing the information processing model. So the information processing model is a conceptual model of how thinking process happens. So sensory memory is where external information is taken in by our senses. So it's what we see, feel, smell, hear, and taste. Then we have working memory that is a part of our short-term memory and it is connected with immediate conscious processing. And last, we have long-term memory, which is the storage of information over an extended period. And it is a lasting retention of information and skills. So here's the information processing model. And it starts with sensory input, where we receive external stimuli via our 5 senses. So we have sight, touch, taste, smell, and sound, which goes into our sensory memory. Then we choose to attend to some information, not all. The information we do not attend to is lost, and the information we attend to gets passed along to our working memory. And then our working memory or short-term memory is where we engage with immediate conscious information in which we are actively thinking about at the time. Then we create connections here to previously learned information and use multiple modes to create meaningful connections, which make it easier to retrieve later on. And lastly, we have long-term memory. So here, in order to retain information, it needs to be encoded and stored in our working memory, and rehearsal and chunking information would need to happen. So when we encode, our brain knows not to discard the newly learned information so that we can recall it again when needed. So information gets stored in the LTM with previously established schema. And these memories are stored as either explicit or implicit knowledge. And we can also lose information over time in the long-term memory, just as with any other information that isn't used and isn't engaged with meaningfully. Then we have our next slide. Then we have working memory, which is the RAM of the brain, and it is a cognitive system with limited capacity holding temporary information. It is responsible for processing sensory information, and it's responsible for executive processes that help us decide what is important. It helps us focus, control, and complete tasks. And depletion can also occur when we are overwhelmed in our working memory. And we can also experience intrinsic and extraneous cognitive load.
Music training and information processing. Finding from recent article, musical training enhances information processing speed, evaluates how music training will enhance general information processing speed in musicians versus non-musicians. Next slide. Jennifer Bugos and Wendy Mustafa both conducted a research in music training with enhancing cognitive and motor skills. The role of learning music can help improve creativity, new learning, and adaptive experiences, along with personal growth. Studies in neuroscience show that music can enhance brain function in children. Musical activities such as playing an instrument, singing, or just listening to music can stimulate the brain, and the brain workout leads to improved brain structure with the formation of new neural connections. Achievement and discipline. Learning music teaches children to work towards short-term goals, develop routine, and practice self-discipline. Setting aside regular time for practice develops commitment and patience. Mastering a new piece of music leads to a sense of pride and achievement and helps children to learn the value of self-discipline, as well as social skills and math skills, language skills, coordination skills, and memory and concentration. Recent studies shown that people who are musically trained have better working memory skills, helping them to remember things even while their minds are busy with other matters. Important aspects of mental arithmetic and reading comprehension. Learning music also requires significant levels of concentration, training children to focus their attention for sustained periods. In conclusion, music training helps the body and the mind work together. Exposing children to music during early development helps them learn the sounds and meanings of words. Dancing to music helps children build motor skills while allowing them to practice self-expression. For children and adults, music helps strengthen memory skills. Next slide.
The importance of information processing theory. Information processing theory is important because it tells us that there is an imposed universal structure in how information is processed. When we learn new information that is important for us to remember, it goes into our sensory memory, being passed over to our working memory, and when rehearsed, it is stored in our long-term memory. Once it is in our long-term memory, we are then able to retrieve it when we need it. It also helps researchers further understand our working memory, which plays a role in manipulating information, maintaining goals, and inhibiting irrelevant information. And then information processing theory and education. So the information processing theory contributes to education because it helps teachers find ways to structure their lesson plans in order to make sure that students are not just memorizing information in order to pass the class or pass the test, but are understanding and remembering all the new information that they are learning. It is important in education because then the students are then able to recall information that they have learned in school when they need it both inside of school and outside of school. It helps ensure that it's encoded into their long-term memory for recall whenever it's needed.
Information processing theory continued. Real-world applications. There are many ways to apply information processing theory to the real world. Since this theory utilizes a model that shows how we use different ways to store information through working memory, we will explore the examples of how it is used in the real world. Some of these applications require the production of intrinsic cognitive load in order to make the storing of information as easier as possible. Being in the Being in the real world, your extraneous cognitive load also plays a factor in what you retain and what you don't. As children start to grow, they develop different strategies to help them utilize their working memory. As we know already, our working memory, CPU, never tires out. Examples of application. Elaborative rehearsal is a strategy used by organizing information and creating ways to access that information easily when it is needed. Rehearsals can be done in chunks using visual imagery, vocally repeating information, grouping qualitative and quantitative information, and even a mnemonic strategy. Mnemonic strategy is where you create a code for a certain topic in which you can associate that information with things you need to know. An example would be the capital of Georgia is Atlanta, which I can code Atlanta with ATL, a shorter code for the city of Atlanta. Selective attention, in order to help understand what is being processed through your sensory input to your working memory, a great skill to have is how you utilize selective attention. There is attention where you need to make your stimuli your focal point and not let other factors overcome you, your intrinsic cognitive load, An example would be comprehending a class assigned text in order to answer a discussion post, while tuning out distraction. It could be loud music, other people talking, negative thoughts, worrying about finances, etc. Sensory memory games. A way to exercise the way you process information is playing sensory memory games in which you target a specific stimuli and try to confuse different parts of your brain where it is programmed to store a certain set of information. An example, I write down 12 words in 3 separate columns. Each word is the name of a different color. However, I'll write down the word in the opposite color. So how you read this is blue, red, orange, yellow, purple, pink. I am not reading the words, but I'm just saying the color that it is. So my goal is to say the color and not the word, and complete all 12 words without error. Your brain is wired to automatically read the word itself, which makes it challenging. And that's the end of our presentation.